Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, MR.Creepy. So today's video is definitely going to creep you out. In this video, we're getting into 4 real stories from people who were completely alone at home when a storm hit, and something else found them first. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Alright, let's get into tonight's stories. I have always been the kind of person who settles in fast. Give me a couch, a blanket, something playing on a TV, and I'm done for the night. I don't need much. I'd been living in that apartment for almost 3 years by then, and I knew every sound it made. The pipes when the heat kicked on the way the hallway door downstairs with thud shut after 11. The hum of the refrigerator, cycling at night. That apartment didn't have many surprises left in it. That was what I liked about it. I remember checking my phone at work and seeing the weather alert come through around 2 in the afternoon. Heavy rain, high winds, possible flooding in low areas. By the time I got home at 6, the sky had already gone that flat, heavy gray that sits too low and makes everything feel smaller than it is. I changed out of my work clothes, heated up some leftovers, and turned on a show I'd been picking at for a few weeks. Normal evening. Exactly the kind of night I would usually not remember at all. The wind picked up after 9. Not gradually, it kind of arrived, the way serious weather does, like a door opening. I could hear it pushing against the window above the TV, and the rain started coming down hard enough that it wasn't background noise anymore. I turned the volume up a little and kept watching. The lights flickered once around 9:30. Just once, for maybe 2 seconds. I looked up at the ceiling, waited, and they held. I made a mental note to find my flashlight at some point, and then immediately forgot about it, the way you do when nothing actually goes wrong. I was comfortable. That is the part I keep returning to. I was completely, genuinely comfortable. The first knock came at 10:12. I know the time because I checked my phone right after I heard it. It was 3 knocks, evenly spaced, firm. Not someone pounding, not someone who seemed scared or urgent. Just a calm, deliberate knock, the kind you give when you're expecting the door to open. I muted the TV and sat still on the couch and listened. Nothing followed it. No voice, no shuffling, no second attempt. I lived on the 3rd floor of a building with a key fob entrance at the lobby. For someone to be at my door, they had to have either a fob or been let in by another tenant. It wasn't impossible, but it wasn't nothing either. I got up and walked to the door. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. The overhead light out there buzzed like it always did, a faint electrical flicker that maintenance had been promising to fix for over a year. No one was standing there. The hallway in both directions was clear. I stayed at the door for a moment, listening, then went back to the couch. I told myself it had been a neighbor's door. Sound does strange things in storms. It bounces and bends and lands somewhere it doesn't belong. That was the most reasonable explanation, and I chose it and moved on. I watched another episode. The storm got louder. Around 11, the power went out completely, and this time it didn't come back. I sat in the dark for a minute, then picked up my phone and switched on the flashlight. I found a candle in the kitchen drawer, lit it, and set it on the coffee table. The apartment settled into that particular kind of quiet that only happens when everything electric goes off at once. A deeper silence than usual, the kind that makes you aware of your own breathing. I was sitting there in the candlelight, not watching anything, just listening to the rain. When the second knock came, it was slower this time. 3 knocks again, but with a pause between each one, long enough that after the first, I thought it was done. And then the second came, and after the second, I thought it was done again, and then the third. Deliberate, patient, like whoever was on the other side had all the time in the world. Something shifted in my chest when I heard it. Not panic. I want to be clear about that. It was something quieter than panic. A deep, specific wrongness. The kind your body understands before your mind catches up. I got up again and went back to the door. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty again. Same buzzing light, same scuffed floor. Nobody there. But this time I noticed something I had missed on the first check. The gap at the bottom of my door, There's always a thin line of hallway light that bleeds through underneath it. When the building lights are on, I could see that line every night when I came home, a faint glow that told me the lights were still on out there. I was looking at that gap now and the line wasn't there. It was dark, completely dark. Something was standing directly against my door, close enough to block the light entirely. I did not breathe. I did not move. I stood with my eye at the peephole and stared at empty hallway and felt whatever was on the other side of the door standing inches from my face with only 2 inches of wood between us. I don't know how long I stood there. It felt enormous, but was probably under a minute. Then, slowly, the light came back under the door. The thin yellow line returned. Whatever had been standing there had moved away. I called the building's overnight desk. The man who answered told me nobody had come through the lobby in over 2 hours. He said the exterior camera had gone offline at 9:47 due to what he assumed was a storm-related power surge and had only come back online at 11:20. He said he'd review the footage. He called me back 15 minutes later. He said the gap in the recording was clean. Nothing before it went out, nothing after it came back. Whatever had happened in that window didn't exist on camera. I asked him if the camera had ever gone offline like that before. He was quiet for a second. Then he said no. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with every light I could find turned on my back against the wall, and I watched that gap under the door until the sun came up and the storm broke and the building started making its ordinary morning sounds again. The knock never came a third time. Nobody ever came forward. The building manager told me the camera issue had been a one-time thing and had been repaired. I still check that gap every night before I go to sleep. I have lived in 2 other apartments since then, and I check it in both of them. I don't think I'll ever stop. I was 26 when my aunt and uncle asked me to house sit for 10 days while they flew out to visit family overseas. I had done it once before, 2 summers earlier, and it had been completely uneventful. Quiet house, good Wi-Fi, nobody bothering me. Easy. So when they asked again, I said yes without hesitation. Their house was about 40 minutes outside the city. Not remote, but removed enough that the nearest gas station was a 12-minute drive, and the street it sat on had only 4 other houses, each one set back far enough from the road that you couldn't see their lights from the front porch at night. It was the kind of neighborhood that felt peaceful in the daytime and felt like something else entirely after dark. They left on a Thursday. The storm wasn't even being talked about yet. It rolled in 2 days later, Saturday night, with almost no warning. I remember the weather app on my phone going from a partly cloudy icon to a storm warning between one check and the next. By the time I actually registered it, the rain was already loud on the roof, and the wind was moving through the trees in the backyard in long, heavy waves. Before my aunt left, she had given me a short walkthrough of the house, where the fuse box was, which burner on the stove ran hot, where they kept the spare keys. At the end of the walkthrough, she pointed down the hallway toward the last door on the left, her home office, and told me not to go in there. She said it plainly, without making it a big thing. She had client documents on the desk, confidential stuff, and she didn't want anything moved or disturbed. I told her, of course, no problem. I had 0 interest in her filing system. I meant it completely. For the first 2 days, I barely thought about that door. I stayed mostly in the kitchen and the living room and the guest bedroom. The house was large enough that whole sections of it went unused, and the hallway where the office was felt like a part of the house I just didn't need. The door stayed closed, and I stayed out of that end of the hall. No issue. Then came Saturday night. I had been in the guest room reading when the storm arrived. I read for another hour or so, with the rain coming down hard outside the window, then decided to get some water and go to sleep. I walked out into the hallway, and that's when I saw it. Light, coming from under the office door. A thin, warm line of it, low and steady, the way a desk lamp looks when it's been left on. I stood in the hallway and looked at it for a moment. My first thought was that my aunt had simply left a lamp on when she packed up, and I just hadn't noticed it the previous 2 days, because I'd never been in the hallway late at night with all the other lights off. That was a reasonable explanation, and I almost went back to bed with it. But something kept me standing there. The light seemed too even, too deliberate, and now that I was paying attention, I realized it was slightly brighter than it had looked at first. Not dramatically, but enough that I noticed it, the way you notice a sound that doesn't change when you expect it to fade. I told myself I would just switch the lamp off. Go in, click the switch, come back out. 30 seconds. I walked to the end of the hall and put my hand on the door handle. The light went out, not gradually, instantly, like someone had flipped a switch the moment my hand touched the handle. I stood there, in total darkness, with my fingers wrapped around the door handle, and the storm hammering the roof above me, and my heart doing something I hadn't felt it do in a long time. I pushed the door open anyway. The office was dark and still. My aunt's desk was exactly as she had described, papers spread open, a coffee mug, a notepad with handwriting I didn't read. The desk lamp sat in the corner. I reached out and touched the bulb. It was cold, not slightly cool, the way a bulb gets 10 minutes after being switched off. Cold the way something gets when it hasn't been warm in a long time. I checked every window in that room. All of them were locked. I checked the closet, a narrow thing built into the wall beside the bookshelf, empty. I stood in the middle of that room for a long moment, listening to the rain and looking at the cold lamp and trying to construct a version of events that made ordinary sense. I couldn't do it. I went back to the guest room, locked the door, and sat on the bed with my back against the headboard. I left the lamp on the nightstand, burning all night. I didn't sleep well. Every time I started to drift off, I'd snap back awake and find myself staring at the door, listening for sounds from the far end of the hall, hearing nothing but the storm and the old house adjusting around me. In the morning, I felt almost foolish about it. Old houses do strange things. Electrical shorts exist. I had a cup of coffee and talked myself down from it completely. My aunt came home 8 days later. I told her what had happened. The light, the cold bulb. I kept my voice level and tried to make it sound like a minor curiosity rather than the thing I'd actually thought about every day since it happened. She listened carefully. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, looking at the table between us. Then she told me that lamp had a short in the wiring that had been acting up for months. She said she kept meaning to replace it and hadn't gotten around to it. I felt the knot in my chest loosen slightly. There it was, the ordinary explanation. Then she looked up at me and said, "But I unplugged it before I left. I didn't want it to be a fire hazard while the house was empty." She said it the way people say things they've already spent time making peace with, quietly, without surprise, without asking me to explain it further, like it wasn't the first strange thing that room had produced, and she had simply decided, at some point, to stop looking for answers. I didn't ask her what she meant by that. I know myself well enough to know I didn't want to hear it. I haven't been back to that house since. My aunt has never brought up that conversation again. Neither have I. Some things are easier to carry when you leave them in the hallway, and just don't go back to that end of the house. I need to preface this by saying I'm not someone who scares easily. I grew up in a house with 4 siblings, shared a room until I was 16, and spent most of my adult life in busy apartment buildings where noise and interruption were just part of the background. Being alone never bothered me. If anything, I looked forward to it. So when my girlfriend told me she'd be visiting her parents for the whole week, I was genuinely looking forward to having the place to myself. We'd been living together for almost 2 years by then, in a mid-sized apartment on the 2nd floor of a building in a quiet residential neighborhood. Good looks, decent neighbors. The kind of building where you'd occasionally run into someone at the mailbox and exchange a few words. Nothing unusual about it. Nothing that had ever given me a reason to feel anything other than at home. The storm that week came in on a Tuesday and didn't leave until Friday. Not violent, just relentless. The kind of weather that wears you down slowly, keeps the sky dark all day, and makes you feel like the world has gotten smaller and quieter than it should be. By Wednesday, I was working from home, barely getting dressed, eating whatever required the least effort to prepare. I noticed the first thing Wednesday afternoon. I came out of the bedroom to make coffee and found the kitchen chair pulled away from the table. Not dramatically, just shifted out maybe 18 inches. the way it looks after someone has stood up from it. I lived alone that week. I hadn't sat in that chair since Sunday when my girlfriend had been there. I stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at it for a moment, then walked over and pushed it back in. I made my coffee. I didn't think about it again for hours. That evening, I noticed the second thing. I came out of the bathroom and reached to push the door back open, the way I always do. I never leave it closed when no one's using it, just a habit I've had since I was a kid. Something about closed doors in empty rooms that I've never liked. But when I reached for it, I realized it was already closed, already latched. I stood in the hallway and stared at it for a long moment, then pushed it open. The bathroom was empty. Everything exactly as it should be. Towel on the rack, soap by the sink. Nothing moved or disturbed. Two things, both small, both with easy explanations on their own. I told myself I'd been distracted, forgetful, that a long week alone in a quiet apartment makes you careless about the small things you do on autopilot. I believed it. I went back to the living room and put the TV on and let the evening pass. But I didn't sleep well that night. I kept coming back to those two things in the dark, the chair, the door, and the fact that they had happened on the same day. I couldn't make them feel separate no matter how hard I tried. I texted my girlfriend before I turned the lamp off. Just asked casually when she had last been in the apartment. She replied a few minutes later, Sunday morning before her train. She asked why. I told her I was just checking something. She sent back a question mark and I told her it was nothing and to have a good night. Thursday was quiet. Nothing happened. I started to feel better about it. Then Thursday night, somewhere around 1 in the morning, I woke up. I lay still in the dark bedroom, trying to figure out what had pulled me out of sleep. The storm was still going outside. I could hear the rain on the window, and the occasional gust moving through the street. The apartment was quiet. I stared at the ceiling and waited, and was almost back under when I heard it. The refrigerator door, that specific sound, the soft magnetic resistance, and then the gentle release as it pulls open. I know that sound better than almost any other sound in my life. I heard it open, and then, a few seconds later, I heard it close. I did not move. I lay completely still in the bed with my eyes open and my phone on the mattress beside me, and I listened to the apartment. The rain, the wind, my own breathing. Nothing else came. No footsteps. No voices. No further movement. Just silence and the storm. I waited 10 minutes before I got up. I know it was 10 minutes because I watched the clock on my phone the entire time, unable to look away from it. Then I got up, turned on the bedroom lamp, picked up my phone, and walked to the kitchen. The refrigerator was closed. Everything in the kitchen was exactly as I'd left it. Nothing on the counter, nothing on the table, nothing out of place. And then I saw it. On the counter beside the sink, sitting in the middle of the tile where I absolutely would have seen it when I made dinner 3 hours earlier, was a glass of water. Clear glass, plain tap water, about halfway full. I stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at it for a long time without touching it. It was 1 in the morning, and she answered on the 4th ring, groggy and confused, and I told her everything. The chair, the door, the refrigerator, the glass. She stayed on the phone with me for over an hour while I went through every room, every closet, every window. Everything was locked, every window latched, every door secure. The apartment was empty. I was alone. We never found an explanation. My girlfriend moved back in at the end of the week, and I told her the story in full. When she got home, she listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a while, looking at that counter. Then she asked me if I wanted to move. We stayed for another 4 months. In that time, nothing else happened. Not once. Whatever it was, whoever it was, it didn't come back. Or if it did, it was more careful the second time. But I changed after that week. Small things. I started locking the bedroom door at night, which I had never done before in my life. I stopped leaving any room without taking one last look behind me before I turned off the light. I started noticing chairs. I know how that sounds. But you have to understand, it wasn't the refrigerator that stayed with me. It wasn't even waking up at 1 in the morning to a sound I recognized in a place that was supposed to be empty. It was the glass of water, half full, left on the counter, like someone had set it down and stepped away for a moment and fully intended to come back. I think about that glass more than I should. I think about it in the way you think about something that doesn't have a clean ending because somebody put it there, and whatever they needed it for, I don't think it was thirst. And that's all for tonight, everyone. 3 stories, 3 ordinary nights that turned into something nobody could explain. A knock with no one behind it, a lamp that was unplugged, a glass of water that nobody poured. Small things, but the small things are always the ones that stay with you. If something like this has ever happened to you, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe. Lock your doors.